Kroaker's Big Adventure. The Bullfrog's Brave Escape. Once upon a time, in a crystal-clear river near a quiet little town, there lived two very large fish. These weren't just any fish, they were the biggest, bravest fish you'd ever seen. They were so big and bold that nothing in the river ever frightened them. They splashed the water, tangled the fishing lines of kids trying to catch them, and swam anywhere they pleased. Everyone in the river knew these fish ruled the water. When they swam by, other fish moved out of the way. Even the birds flying overhead marveled at their bravery. But one day, something new happened. A large bullfrog and his family moved into the neighborhood. His name was Kroaker, and though he was big for a frog, he wasn't as big as the two fish. In fact, Kroaker had heard stories about these fish. They were strong, brave, and nothing ever scared them. Kroaker wasn't like that. He believed in being careful. He liked to watch things from a distance, think things over, and only jump in when he felt it was safe. While the fish swam boldly in the river, Kroaker would sit on the bank, watching and thinking. He thought the fish were interesting, but he was also cautious. Making new friends one sunny afternoon, after watching the river for days, Kroaker decided it was time to meet these big, brave fish. With a mighty hop, he leapt into the water, splashing down right in front of them. "Hi there," Kroaker croaked loudly. "I'm Kroaker, the biggest and smartest bullfrog in the world." The two big fish stopped swimming and looked at him, their fins glittering in the sunlight. "Biggest and smartest, you say?" one fish said, flicking his tail. "We are the biggest and bravest fish in this river," the other fish added with a proud grin. "Well, that may be true, but I've got something just as good, common sense." Kroaker puffed out his chest. The fish looked at each other and smiled. "Well, if you're nice, we may let you share our water," one of the fish said. And just like that, the three became friends. Every day, they met at the same spot in the crystal-clear river to swim, talk, and splash around. The fish told Kroaker all about the river, and Kroaker shared his thoughts about being careful and wise. The first adventure, a warning in the night one evening, as the sun was setting and the three friends were resting by the water, they spotted two fishermen walking along the riverbank. The fishermen were talking and pointing at the water. Kroaker's big eyes widened. His common sense kicked in, and he quickly hopped under the bank to hide. "Why are you hiding?" one fish asked, laughing. "Fishermen are dangerous. I heard them talking about catching big fish like you. They'll come back for you," Kroaker said. The two fish chuckled, splashing in the water. "Don't worry, Kroaker. We're too big and brave to get caught by anyone," they said confidently. Kroaker didn't argue. He knew that sometimes bravery could be dangerous without common sense. "I'll take my family to the nearby pond for safety," he said. As the bullfrog left, the two fish swam around proudly, showing off their size to the fishermen. The big trouble caught. The next morning, just as the sun rose, the two fishermen returned to the river. They moved quietly, not wanting to scare away the fish. The fish were still swimming lazily, confident that they were too fast and strong to be caught. The fishermen cast their lines into the river, and within minutes, they hooked both of the big fish. The battle began. The fish twisted and turned, leaping from the water, thrashing their tails, and doing everything they could to break free. The water splashed everywhere as they fought to escape. Kroaker watched from the safety of the tall grass by the nearby pond. His heart raced as he saw his friends struggling. The fishermen were strong and determined. After what seemed like forever, the fish were pulled from the water, flopping in the fishermen's nets. Kroaker's stomach turned. His friends, the bravest fish in the river, had been caught. Kroaker's plan, a hero's escape back in the pond, Kroaker gathered his family and told them what had happened. "My friends were strong and brave, but they didn't listen. They didn't use common sense," Kroaker said sadly. His family huddled around him, their big eyes wide with worry. "What should we do, Kroaker?" asked one of his little froglets. Kroaker thought for a moment, then said, "We need a plan. If those fishermen come back, we have to be ready. We'll need to be clever." The frog family spent the next few days making their pond a secret hideout. They dug tunnels under the mud, created hiding spots in the tall grass, and practiced hopping quickly into the water at the first sign of danger. One afternoon, as Kroaker was keeping watch, he saw the fishermen returning. They had nets and fishing poles, and they were talking about catching frogs for a change. Kroaker's heart thudded in his chest. It was time to act. "Hide," he called to his family. With lightning speed, the frogs hopped into their secret tunnels and under the tall grass. Kroaker stayed behind, watching the fishermen. They looked all around, trying to spot a frog, but the pond was completely still. "Where did they all go?" one fisherman asked, scratching his head. Kroaker smiled from his hiding place. He knew his family was safe. Once the fishermen gave up and left, Kroaker hopped back to the pond. His family cheered, and Kroaker puffed out his chest proudly. The lesson: common sense wins the day. Kroaker knew that being brave was important, but he also knew that sometimes being careful was even better. He gathered his family and said, "Today we used common sense to stay safe. We didn't try to be the biggest or the strongest, but we were the smartest." His little froglets listened carefully, their eyes shining with pride. They had learned a valuable lesson. Bravery is important, but common sense will always save the day. And from that day on, Kroaker the Bullfrog and his family lived happily in their safe little pond, using their smarts to outwit any danger that came their way.